Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 9 of the 4-Star Podcast. I am your host, Jordan DuPont, joined, as always, by Nick DeCola, Teige Mullen, and Andrew Freeman. You can follow us on Twitter at 4StarPodCHI. Nick is at NDecola21. Teige is at TMMullen007, and Andrew is at AJFreeman25. As has become standard, we will jump right into trashing the Cubs because that's all they have been giving us reason to do lately. Quick recap of the two series we had this week. We started in Anaheim. We totally got murdered in game 1, and then we totally got murdered in game 2, and totally got murdered in game 3. So that was a fun one. In San Francisco, after the Anaheim series, we actually had a good game 1. Game 2 was the Kyle Hendricks game, and game 3 today was rough. So if there's anything you guys want to dig in on for this super, super fun topic, I'll let you get started.
I did have two things regarding pitching, specifically pitchers. One, Keegan Wisniewski, or excuse me, that's not his name. Is that his name?
Hayden Wisniewski.
Hayden Wisniewski. I'm sorry, I'm mixing up with Keegan Thompson. My
Keegan
bad. I'm so
Thompson,
sorry. That's gonna be
both underachieving pitchers that we thought were gonna be way better. You know.
So Wisniewski, I don't think he's ready. I still don't think he's ready. You know, he went down to AAA. He got brought up mainly out of necessity. I'm not really looking. I don't know. Hopefully he develops, but right now it's just rough. It's rough going. It's rough watching him. He's giving up hard contact, and hopefully he figures out. But I did want to mention Jameson Taillon. Apparently I've become the Taillon hater, but also Taillon supporter because, he did lose the last game. He had 4 earned runs, but what I liked about it was that he still kept up that blueprint we talked about last week. He still threw his fastball curveball to lefties with a lot of the sweepers, sinkers, and fastballs to righties, and the changeup to lefties as well. His cutter rate way down. He gave up a home run to Mike Trout on a sweeper, which, I mean, look, it's Mike Trout. All right, if you're going to mess up, yeah, he's going to take advantage of it. And then he gave up another homer to a lefty with like a 93-mile-per-hour four-seamer, so whatever, you can deal with that. But his other 2 earned runs came up after he got pulled. Yeah, he got pulled after giving up 2 base hits and gotten out, but they're on like sweepers and sinkers, and I don't think the contact was all that hard. So just at that point, that's just kind of baseball. But hey, I hope he keeps it up. Whatever Hottovy is preaching to him and the catching staff, they're listening. He's listening. He's looking a lot better. Again, I'm not expecting him to be a 6-7 inning guy. 5 innings, 2 runs, get him out. Cool, sweet, you did your job. So if he can keep that up, I think we'll see him settle into being that number 3, number 4 guy that we need. And that's just another positive in a week of negatives. So
yeah, I mean, in theory, if you had any semblance of good hitting with runners in scoring position, not to continue to beat that already 6-week dead horse, even if you're giving up 4 runs, I mean, you should be able to at least make it a close ball game, and we just have not been able to do that. I mean, you look at all of our outlying figures. Dansby Swanson's hitting well. Morel trailed off a little bit because I think everybody kind of started to realize his game, but
he wasn't going to hit like 80 homers this season.
Right.
We talked about that though. We're like, this is not sustainable whatsoever.
And he still hit home run yesterday. Yep. So he's still been a positive.
Right.
But I mean, you figure Dansby isolated, hitting well. Nico isolated, hitting well. You've got a lot of guys doing really good on their own, but then you put guys on base in front of them, and our team just completely gets quiet. So it kind of feel for Taillon there. Well, our whole pitching staff, honestly.
It just seems like whenever one bat, it's like nobody, the hitters can't get hot at the same time, but everybody goes cold at the same time. It's like,
right. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And something that I noticed that was interesting today. So obviously the Cubs got killed today in the last game of the series. Part of the issue with this team is they can't really build momentum. They can't really build off wins. They are 4-6 team in the last game of every series so far this season. So it's really hard to build momentum and build towards that next series when you're always losing the last game of series. It's just, it's
and even funnier. I don't know. Yeah. I don't have it offhand, but they've lost almost every single Sunday too. So just kind of add fuel to the fire. They cannot win on Sundays. If the Sunday finishes off a series, it's like double jeopardy. Just there's no we're just gonna lose.
Maybe they're partying a little too hard.
Yeah, maybe they're enjoying the weekend a little bit too much.
Maybe.
I don't know what it is, but something's got to change. I mean,
by the way,
I don't know
the Cubs finally have a negative run differential, guys. They're negative 13 on the season.
Okay, so we can stop
Thanks,
pretending
Andrew.
they're good now.
Yeah, we can stop pretending they're good now. Yeah. Which, I mean, their run differential is still third in the division. So if there's any solace there.
Milwaukee just got swept by
not
Oakland.
Solace. Yeah, it's just more infuriating because this is a super winnable division. I mean, our division leaders. I don't know if it updated. I checked this morning before I went to work.
The Pirates do have a positive run differential. They're +2 on the season.
I mean,
so they're really scraping by.
As of this morning, before games were played, I know the Pirates had one more win and loss than the Brewers, but they were both tied for first just because it was one more and one more.
They had the same amount of wins. Pirates had 2 less losses, but go ahead.
Got it. So, yeah, as of this morning, those two teams being tied for first place in the division was also tied for third place in the wild card. That's how bad our division is. We should have been able to field a competitive in our division team this year, and that is just what's most frustrating. It's like unless Stroh or Kyle Hendricks are on the mound, some Drew Smyly too here and there, but it's like unless you get a good start out of Smyly or those other two guys are on the mound, you stand no chance of winning the game.
Well, on the bright side, that's not going to be a problem when we trade all those guys at the deadline, because that's what it's starting to look like.
That is what it's starting to look like. And I swear to God, if we trade Stroh, I'm going to lose it. There will be a rant on either this or Twitter or something, but that would be the most infuriating thing to happen this season. And that's what it's looking like is going to happen.
Yeah, speaking of Twitter, did we see Marcus Stroman's tweet on the trade deadline? I sent it to Nick, and Nick just gave me not an enthusiastic response. So I'll let you take the floor on that one, Nick.
Okay. All right. I don't want to swear too early in the podcast. I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second here. Okay. If you didn't see the tweet, Stroman basically said that the Cubs weren't interested in talking extension at this moment. If I'm playing devil's advocate, they're going to try to keep their options open at the trade deadline. So they're going to maybe see what his market is like, see what they can get for him, and then maybe try to extend him. My problem with that is he is a perfect fit for this team. He's the type of pitcher that does really well with a great infield defense, which is what the Cubs have. And he loves it here. We love having him. If you don't want to risk him, even if you get like a prospect for him or something like that, or something of value for trading him at the deadline, and you think, oh, maybe we can just re-sign him in the offseason. Well, maybe he goes off and decides maybe he wants more money in the offseason. Maybe he would have taken less if you extend him now versus letting him hit free agency. Maybe the team you trade him to, maybe he falls in love there. Maybe he decides, you know what, I'm just going to stay with them. So I don't know. I think they just really, no matter what happens, whether they sell at the deadline, which they're probably going to sell at the deadline, as I've been alluding to so far, and we can get into that. But I think no matter what, I think it's better to just lock down Marcus Stroman.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's exactly what the organization is doing. They're looking to see where exactly we sit at the trade deadline, looking to see what his market is going to be. And that's why they're not engaging in extension talks, because as it sits right now, they have no interest in re-signing him. All they're interested in is trading half a year of him away. And again, like you're saying, perfect point. He's a perfect fit for this team. He wants to be on this team. He wants to be in this city. We want him to stay here. He's a perfect fit for what we have. We have our core locked down for the next 5 years, basically, roughly. I'm spitballing a little bit, but
more or less 3.
More or less. Just extend the guy. You know, if you're going to write this season off, we have to. If we're not competitive next year or the year after that, I'm going to lose my mind. So extend him now while you can, because I'm pretty sure he would take a bit of a hometown discount as it sits. If he's more interested in signing an extension than he is in exercising his player option at the end of the year, that leads me to believe he'd be willing to take a little bit of a hometown discount.
Well, the way he's pitching right now, he's not taking that player option.
Yeah, I would say
I
that
would not expect that.
At his age, I think it'd be very unwise of him to take a hometown discount. I think he's probably going to be his last big contract. So if I were in Stroman's, I'm just saying from my perspective, if I were in Stroman's shoes here, like I probably wouldn't be looking to take a hometown discount. So they add some more drama to the Stroman thing. Speaking of Twitter, going through his likes on Twitter, he liked a tweet, a response to that tweet that he made, and some other. It's just a random fan. Basically, here's what the tweet says. Stroman liked this tweet. Clean house in the front office. They'll ultimately sell at the deadline and get minimal return for Stroh because teams know we're desperate. He's earned an extension. Tired of the we don't have money BS. So if you want to know where Stroman,
here's the thing. I think the way I know Marcus Stroman operates on Twitter, he probably just liked it for the he deserves an extension part. Everything else,
so.
Meh. Even if I kind of feel similarly.
That's the optimistic way of looking at it.
I don't know. The way I see it, if he wasn't going to be willing to take a little bit of a hometown discount, he wouldn't come out in public and say how much he loves the city and how much he wants to stay here.
And whether or not he's willing to take a discount or the Cubs are willing to give him some sort of the Cubs don't have to give him a discount.
No,
they're the Chicago Cubs, one of the biggest markets in the league, one of the oldest franchises in the league, one of the most valuable franchises in the league. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. I would think it top 5 for sure, maybe even top 3. You don't need whether or not Marcus Stroman is willing to accept the discount is not the difference between you being able to sign Marcus Stroman.
No,
anybody you want. You're a big market team. Act like it. My God, stop being the Rays with.
Half of the reason we started this podcast and we thought it might be viable is because just specifically focusing on Chicago sports teams is because Chicago is the 3rd largest media market in the freaking country. You are the Ricketts family. Yep. You own I'm sorry, White Sox fans.
The beer bat was $34. Where is the money going? Where's my money going?
I'm sorry,
an
White
entire
Sox
monopoly
fans.
over Wrigleyville, essentially.
Yeah, I'm sorry, White Sox fans, but when you think of Chicago baseball, you think of the Cubs. The White Sox are an afterthought. I think it's always been that way. I think it's always going to be that way. No offense, but that's how it is. I live in Arizona. There's tons of Cubs fans out here. There's tons of Cubs fans on road games. I don't see too many Sox fans out here. That says something. You have the money. You've gone over the luxury tax before when we won a World Series. What is the issue? It's because they don't actually I really don't think they care about winning. I think they just want to make money off of the team, which is the exact opposite of what they said when they bought it. But here we are nonetheless.
It is really incredible to see the way this organization just pissed away all the goodwill that they gained from winning the first World Series for this team in 108 years. And within it's 8 years later, within 5 years, you could argue it was gone.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was gone a few years ago, I feel like.
Yeah. When they traded away the core. I mean, the original core, I should say. When they got rid of Bryant, Baez, Rizzo, all those guys.
I don't know. Apart from Rizzo, that ended
up
up being pretty good.
Yeah,
I was going to say they timed that pretty well.
Rizzo's the only one I think this team could really use. Everyone else is.
Yes, I would agree. But at the time, it was what was it, 3-4 years out? I think it was 2020, right?
But it wasn't even trading those guys away at that point. It was the moves they weren't making. It was trading Darvish away for peanuts. It was non-tendering Kyle Schwarber. It was stuff like that. It's just you're a big market team. Act like it. You can spend the money. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just and this goes for a lot of Chicago sports teams, I feel like, but I'm just really tired of Chicago sports teams in general. So whether you look at any team owned by the Reinsdorfs, which we don't have to talk about in this podcast. But I mean, look at the Cubs, the Bears. For a while, they acted like a small market team, but I think they're getting better at being willing to spend money in other areas to improve the team, not just on players, but in the facilities. And now they're looking to get into building a new stadium and whatnot. Finally. But yeah, I think it's just a common trend here, where Chicago teams, they act like they're small market teams. They cry as if they're, poor and they can't pay these guys, especially in baseball, where it's not really a capped league, especially compared to the NFL and the NHL, where they're very tight in salary caps.
Yeah.
They're very strict on salary caps. In baseball, I mean, look at the Dodgers. They spend a ton of money
Look at
on
the
that ball
Mets.
club. Yeah, look at the Mets. Like, look at
The
any
fact that
New
the
York team.
Padres, and
The
the fact that the
Padres outspend
Padres
the
beat
Cubs.
us out,
Right.
that's something that's like, yeah.
Like, look at any New York team in any major professional sports. Like, a lot of them, like, you look at the Knicks, the Nets, the Mets. Yeah, they're incompetently run for the most part, for a lot of these organizations, but they understand that they are in the biggest media market and they act like it and they go out and they sign players for lots of money. All right. At least they recognize what their advantage is as an organization and they utilize it. The Cubs don't do that.
And
I honestly think
Not right now, they're not.
I honestly think that the fanaticism of Chicago fans is a double-edged sword. I mean, even in the down years, and I mean, there have been lots of Cubs down years, but even in the down years, Wrigley Field would still sell out on the weekends. We'd still pay good money to go and see that team just straight up suck at baseball for a very long time. Because of the atmosphere, because it's a federal landmark, because it is a fun experience. But if you're willing to still shell out when your team is horrible and losing continuously and shows no signs of true improvement, there's no motivation for ownership to change what they're doing and actually pursue winning because they're still raking in money hand over fist.
And again, they have basically, with the way that that entire Wrigleyville is run, like they have basically a monopoly over Wrigleyville, basically. So it's a giant cash cow for them.
They don't even need the Cubs at this point.
No, they don't need. They don't really necessarily. I mean, I would still say they need the Cubs because that's what gives Wrigleyville,
right,
kind of its flavor, I guess. But it's still just like they got a giant cash cow just from the entire area.
The other angle to this, and we harp on the spending because we're like, that's the one thing you can control. You can throw money at players and get them to play for your team, and it's great. But Andrew, you gave the Dodgers an example. The other thing the Dodgers do really well is they develop talent. They develop arms.
Yep.
And if you look at what the Cubs have done in the player development, especially this year with the bullpen, they really relied on homegrown arms. Guys like Keegan Thompson, Estrada, who's the other one? Hughes. And the bullpen has been terrible this year, and that's mainly been a reliance on these young homegrown arms that aren't delivering. So, I know we can complain about, them not spending day after day, but if we want to get back to like the baseball side of things and what they can do on that end, like player development's another area that you really got to look at.
Well, there are still areas where you can look at whether they are spending enough resources in the player development area of the organization. Like I'd imagine the Dodgers, they're spending, because unless I'm wrong on the financial rules here for the MLB, there's no cap to what you can spend on those other.
There's a luxury tax.
It's called a luxury tax.
But is that
threshold?
But is that just for player salary though?
I believe so, and it's not a hard cap.
Yeah,
right.
You can go
so
over
for other areas of the organization. You can spend, if you're a big market team, you can spend a lot of money on beefing up those other areas of the organization besides the player salary. To have a little bit better of a developmental system. So that's the point I'm getting at. It's just that, like, are the Cubs investing enough resources to make sure that they have a good developmental program in their farm system?
Well, and it
just raises questions.
Continuing off of the Dodgers tangent, I mean, you guys, I don't know anything about Dustin May, so I'm not sure if he'd fit into this. But when you think of Dodgers pitching, who do you think of? You think of Julio Urias and Clayton Kershaw, both of whom have been with the Dodgers their entire. Well, yeah, Kershaw's been with the Dodgers his entire freaking career. That says something about player development and player retention. Yeah. I understand Urias is up for free agency this year, and they haven't worked out an extension yet. I get that, but he's their ace. What?
Jed. He's going to be a free agent. Spend money.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah, there you go.
No,
we need pitching.
Urias and Shohei.
But what's weird too, before we move on, because I do want to move on from the Cubs, but like I always hate who's going to be buyers and who's going to be sellers, and it's like we can be like, yeah, we'll be sellers, but like it doesn't have to be like we're sellers. It can just be like we traded away Wisdom and maybe Bellinger and a couple other guys. Like there's no need to blow it up every year when there's a rebuilding process after you just signed all these core guys to like 4 or 5 year deals and then Dansby. And so it's like, why would you, like going back to Stroman, like why would you trade him? Just sign him. You got these guys the next few years, sell, trade a couple of the smaller pieces, but you got prospects coming up too. Like really my biggest concern, I'm not even concerned about our lineup in the next few years. Like now it stinks, but just because they're not hitting well, but in the next few years, I'm not even concerned about it. I'm just concerned about the pitching. So, do what you got to do to get that, Jed. Hire me. I'll take care of it. And just, go from there. But I don't know. I think we can move on from the Cubs, honestly, because they're just so, it's like,
well,
depressing.
What are we going to talk about?
I'm going to turn it. We do need to mention, unless maybe we'll save him for, I'll save him for a start of the week. We do have some bright spots with the Cubs, but that will be a little bit later in the show.
We'll do that later. This is the complaint about the Cubs segment, not the good things about the Cubs segment.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on to the Blackhawks. Nick, I'm assuming you put this in.
Yeah, I put in. So the only Blackhawks news, there's a couple pieces. There's not going to be much until the draft. They re-signed Andreas Athanasiou forward to a 2-year deal, $4.25 million a year. He made $3 million last year. I saw some Blackhawks fans on Twitter saying that it was a bit of an overpay for him. Look, the Blackhawks need to spend money and they need forwards. He knows the system. He played decent enough in it last year. He's going to be like, top 6, top 9 guy, probably. 20 goals, 40 points in 81 games last year. So, I think for the next 2 years, I want Blackhawks fans to make a pact that we are not going to complain about minor overpays to like role players over the next couple of years, because the Hawks need to hit the cap floor. Like, I'm going to say this until I'm blue in the face. They need to spend money. Taves and Kane were making combined, I think it was like $20.5 million a year. That cap hit is gone. They need to replace that somehow with the cap going up every year. So don't complain that someone is making a little bit more money than they probably should. All right. Rant over. The other piece of news is the NHL draft combine happened yesterday. Bedard was there, all that. Apparently he did pretty well. I didn't look too closely into it. Kyle Davidson said, however, when he was asked, that they had started discussions with other teams about taking on some bad contracts which again, okay, I guess my rant's not over because it gets back to the same thing.
Just when I think I'm out, they pull me right back in.
Pull me back.
But this kind of goes back to what I was talking to a
I completely broke Nick with that, apparently.
Just talk about the Godfather trilogy.
Talk about the Godfather.
The first 2 movies. And you got him.
Well, that line's from the 3rd movie.
Right. It's from the 3rd movie. It's like one of the only.
Oh, the best movie?
Anyway, back to the Blackhawks.
I hate you, Teige. I hate you so much. Anyway, he said they were in talks with teams about potentially taking on bad contracts to move up, down in the draft. And this, if you listened a couple weeks ago, I went into, I thought maybe Washington would be a team where you could take a couple bad contracts from Vancouver. So it seems like those talks are progressing. The draft isn't until June 28th. So we've got a little over 2 weeks. We're just going to kind of wait and see until then. He did say any trades would probably likely happen closer to the draft. So keep your eyes and ears out and just get excited.
Yeah, and honestly, that strategy of taking on bad contracts, if you can get better draft position from it or even more draft picks from it, like that's a very smart strategy, especially when you're not going to be a free agent destination in the short term and you need to spend money. Like, why not take on a bad contract or 2 if that can help you?
Or more NHL ready prospects that are close to it, but then you don't have to do the work in developing that player in Rockford for years. You could just come up and be like, oh, hey, Bedard has a teammate that might turn into something. Right. It's not just going to be the Bedard and Lucas Reichel show.
Yeah, I mean, it's just smart team building.
Yeah.
And like you kind of alluded to, Nick, like for the next year or 2, is it going to be kind of crazy to look at the cap sheet and see that, we're paying so-and-so this amount of money? That's ridiculous. He's not that quality of a player. And it's like, that's really not the point, because they're not long-term contracts. They're not tying down the team for multiple years into the future. It's really just about the young players at this point and having bodies in here to kind of help steer them along, having veteran buys, I should say, to help guide these young players and to kind of help them become pros, so to speak. So you're not bringing them in here for their play on the ice necessarily, but you need someone to fill that salary cap space. And having veterans on the team to mentor the younger guys is just a good thing to have in general for a young team.
Yeah, it's any bad contract, it falls squarely for the next 2 years. It's not your money. It's not your problem. Not your money, not your problem. Say it with me. Not your money,
Not my money,
not your
not
problem.
my problem.
I'm sorry. Can we circle back to the fact that Nick said keep your eyes and ears out instead of eyes and ears open? That's just what I've been hooked on that for the past. Yeah, I've just been hooked on that for the past 2 minutes. But yeah, you keep talking. You keep talking.
I'm bad at talking. I don't know how to use words.
Mrs. Willis would be so disappointed in you right now. Shout out Mrs. Willis.
She would be.
Best English teacher ever. All right. Anything else we want to talk about with the Blackhawks? That it?
I think that's pretty good.
All right. Moving on to the Bears. Do you want me to do this, or Andrew, do you want to do it because you're wearing the hat, or how do we want to divvy this up?
Sure, I can take the lead on this one. Yeah. So last week we talked about OTAs and how they had volunteer OTAs, and some of the players, notably Jalen Johnson and Nate Davis, did not show up. And this past week, those guys were back at OTAs. They were practicing. It sounds like they were full participants in practice, which is good. So they're healthy. They're ready to go. Jalen Johnson specifically, he mentioned in his press conference that he spent some time with his daughter and that he was cleared by the coaching staff a long time ago for this. So, last week we kind of speculated that Jalen Johnson was maybe holding out for a new contract. I'm still not sure if I buy his cover story there about I wouldn't say it's a clever story, but I'm not sure I fully buy that that's the entire reason why he wasn't there for volunteer OTAs. But nonetheless, he was there for mandatory OTAs, and that's the important thing. And I already mentioned last week how Nate Davis, this is not surprising for him. He's usually not there for voluntary OTAs with the Titans. So the fact that he wasn't there with the Bears did not surprise me. He's back at mandatory, so we're all good from that standpoint. So I think just a positive to see them back in the building.
I do want to add, I would tend to believe Jalen Johnson a little bit here because in his interview, I admittedly did not see the interview. I just saw the tweet recapping the interview. But he did say, hey, I cleared this with the coaching staff. I want to spend time with my daughter. She only gets one dad. I don't know if this is going to be my only football team. Mm-hmm. So, I get it. I would tend to believe him on that, 100%. Especially if he's coming out and saying hey, I already cleared it with the coaching staff and hopefully they respect it, which, given the type of people that we have in the coaching staff, I would tend to believe that they would, especially, his family lives in California. So I'm not freaking out about it. Again, he did show up for the mandatory OTAs. So I really don't think there's any cause for concern here. It's good to see both him and Nate Davis back.
Yeah, there's really no reason to. I thought there was no reason to freak out about it last week too, but yeah, now that they're back, now it's just all focused on football. And again, they're not missing mandatory practices, which is the key difference here. There's a reason why the players union negotiated for players to be able to opt out of voluntary practices and not have any consequences for it, is because a lot of these players, they don't want to be at all these practices in the off season, especially veteran guys. Really, how much time does Jalen Johnson really need to practice in non-padded scrimmages where he already knows the system, he already knows the coverages, he already has the techniques down? We're in June right now. It's not like we're in training camp a month out from the season. He's doing his own training on his own to get in shape. So I honestly don't think it's for any player to miss out on these workouts. It's really not the biggest thing in the world, in my opinion. No, as long as they're there for the mandatory stuff in training camp.
I'm just super excited for the storyline to come back when he sits out the first day of training camp. And then it's hold out, let's go. Hold out season.
Just when I think I'm out.
I don't know. Yeah, it seems weird though. I don't know. I feel I don't know if they ever asked the coaching staff, but it's I feel that all that needed was just the coaching staff to be yeah, he's good. Don't worry about it. I don't know. It's just let it turn into a story, even though these are voluntary. Like you said, they're voluntary workouts, they're voluntary practices, and then because we're Bears Twitter and we're Bears fans, and it turned into a story when it's such a non-story. Like,
Yep.
dude was good. He worked it out. That's all had to be said, but we turned it into something. So
It's because we're starved for content, Tag. Like, the Cubs are terrible. We can
Yeah,
only
I
talk about how
know,
terrible
yeah.
the Cubs are
Amen.
for
Amen,
how
brother.
long. Bedard's not a Blackhawk officially until, I can't do math, 17 days, something like that. So, this is the dog days of summer here. We are in that right now.
Well, I mean, just imagine if you're sick of us already, imagine all the other poor Chicago beat writers that are having to do the exact same thing we are, with a lot more experience and a lot less to cover. So I think that should about do it for the Bears. Again, nothing for the Bulls. The draft is on the 22nd, so we got a couple of weeks there.
Well, they don't have any
They don't
draft
have
picks
any
anyway.
anyway,
So
so
who cares?
Really,
Not
really
yet.
nothing to talk about
Not yet.
unless
They
decide to make a
could
trade.
maybe pick up some draft capital between now and the draft. We don't know.
the only way the Bulls will be able to pick up draft capital is if they're willing to spend money to buy a draft pick in the second round. And we know that Jerry Reinsdorf isn't spending any money unnecessarily for a draft pick here.
That's a good point.
Like, let's be real here about this.
Let me dream.
Well, before we get Andrew too riled up with JR over there, let's move on to the 4 stars of the week.
Oh my gosh.
All right. We did not talk about who wanted to go when.
I'll take the first one.
Okay.
So the first star of the week goes to Chicagoland native Samantha Rivera. She is a reporter for CBS Miami, and she was covering the Stanley Cup Final in Vegas, Las Vegas Golden Knights, Florida Panthers game, and she was trying to do a segment, and she was, she was just giving her standard report. I don't remember exactly what she was saying, and this drunk Vegas fan, tried to get in the shot, and like she noticed it, she saw it out of the side of her eye, and she stiff-armed the guy. She's like, nope, and now we're back like
Corner.
No, it was very impressive. And Samantha Rivera, I don't know if you've seen a picture, she's not a big girl. Like, I don't know how tall she is, but she's like, she looks pretty petite, and she just like stiff-armed this guy. She's like, nope, get the hell out of my shot. And she did not break eye contact with the camera, so it was just awesome. Shout out to her.
She didn't even like square her shoulders to like turn. It was like
no,
straight
that
up
was
like
just
stiff
straight up
arm.
stiff arm.
That was
Yeah.
all arm strength. I'm impressed. That's better than I could do.
It's a good base, good push.
I'm gonna pull a Teige, and the reason I said corner is because Nick said out of the side of her eye instead of corner of her eye. So just another way to.
Holy
Corner
Nick,
Mrs.
you're really
Rose.
just getting beat up today.
The
I'm
English
sorry,
is
man.
off today.
The English is. It's been a fun week.
I amen to that. All right. Who wants to do our second star of the week?
You go ahead, Jordan.
Okay. Second star of the week, like I alluded to, a little bit of bright spot for the Cubs. Kyle Hendricks, yesterday, had the longest no-hit bid of the season so far, going 7 2/3 innings against the Giants. Finished the inning out, so 8 innings pitched, 1 hit. Classic Kyle Hendricks, did not even touch 90 miles an hour. And I think he was still in the 80s for pitch count when the no-no was broken up. So
I think he had hit 90. He had just hit 90. It was somewhere
got
around
it.
there.
So very close to a Maddox as well. So shout out Kyle Hendricks for being one of the few bright spots for the Cubs these past few weeks.
Not many of them. I guess I'll lead us to our third star of the week here, and that's Jalen Johnson, who we talked about him a little bit earlier, but he was quoted. This is not the exact quote. He was quoted in an interview where he basically essentially said the Bears, they can find another cornerback. My daughter can find another dad, essentially. And, I just got to say, we talked about that earlier, how much we respect Jalen Johnson for spending time with his family and whatnot. And I think this is something that is under discussed in sports realm. And I think it's a really good message to anyone out there for a lot of these players. Like, the teams out there, they view these guys as, especially in the NFL, where it is a cutthroat business, especially when it comes to teams, lowering the value of these players in free agency and whatnot. Like, they definitely view a lot of these guys as replaceable. But, your family members are not replaceable when you look at these players right here. So I think that was a good sentiment by Jalen Johnson. I think that's what makes him a star for the week, for kind of giving that perspective, the player's perspective on, the human element of the sport, which is really much needed, I think.
And the fourth star of the week is there is none. All right, look, not a lot of this has gone on this week.
It's been a rough couple of weeks.
So just imagine that, the Chicago Fire didn't happen. Imagine we have 3 stars in the flag. I don't know.
Yeah,
and we can just throw Stroman in there for more quality starts.
Yeah,
he's still
honorary
in that. But
the more,
I mean,
if we keep giving him more stars, is that going to up his value and make it less likely that the Cubs extend him? Because then we might be doing us a disservice here.
Jed does listen to this podcast,
right? We do know Jed.
We have
to this
established
podcast, so yeah, I'm sure the value is going up there. Moving on to our SWFU segment. I think we're on a good 3-4 episode streak here where we haven't effed anything So
I mean, unless we want to keep on nitpicking, Nick's English here. I mean,
and I called Hayden Wesneski Keegan Wesneski, so there's that today.
Yeah, but it got corrected immediately, so nothing to carry over. All right. Moving on now to our fan favorite Complete 180 segment. I guess I'll go first because I'm just gonna completely spitball here. I'll admit it's been a long week. I started a new job and didn't really have any time to come up with a 180. So I'm just going to talk about MLB The Show for a few minutes here. Specifically, I'm going to involve Teige in this. I do play, especially this year, now that I really do truly live by myself. I have had quite a bit of time to play MLB The Show because Call of Duty has significantly gone downhill, and that was the only other way I spent my free time. So in years past, I always thought, my team was just bad because Teige would have more time to grind on the programs and everything and get the better cards and players. Our other friends, Jacob and Parker, kind of same thing. Well, this year I have had significantly more time than I think all of them combined to try and grind on the show. My team is, I have, for those of you that play, I've got the 99 Randy Johnson, got the 99 Big Papi, pretty much all the good incognito cards, all the good kaiju cards. I know this is going to sound like complete gibberish for people that don't play the game. I apologize, but that's what I got going on.
I haven't played the show in a couple of years, and it still sounds like gibberish to me.
Yeah, so those are just different programs in the game this year. And I have done a few co-op games with Teige where
we won the first one together. We haven't won since.
Yeah.
I also, to kind of interrupt Jordan, I apologize, but we had one opponent intentionally walk me to get to Jordan to get the third out, and it worked. So
I can't hit. I'm really, really good at pitching. Can't hit.
So
doesn't matter how good my cards are. Can't hit.
You actually alternate during co-op play, one person hits and then the other.
Yeah, they
person
actually got a good system for it.
And then the pitcher gets pitcher and catcher, while the other guy gets infield and outfield. And you can even do 3-man teams. We haven't done that yet, but we'll have to get something with Jacob going.
Okay, does it just alternate the entire time, and then you can tell which opponent is hitting?
You can't tell. No,
every batter alternates.
So they kept track that Jordan was Jordan.
Oh okay.
That they walked him to get to, or excuse me, they walked me to get to him, and it worked. Yeah, no, there's no.
So to kind of wrap up here, basically, doesn't matter how good my team is. Anytime I play Teige or Parker, well, I don't think Parker has it this year, but anytime I play Teige or Jacob, our other friend, it does not go well. My goal is to not get shut out and or no hit. And I usually get 1 or 2 runs and they beat me 12-3. So shout out to the show. I wish I were better at it. I spent a lot of time doing it and I still suck. So
yeah, it's a tough game, man. This year, especially, people
are
getting so good because they are what Jordan's referencing to. They're making it so everybody gets really good cards early, and it's it sucks.
It is a grind. It do be like that.
Like that.
All right. Andrew, do you want to go next?
Sure. Why not? So for my 180 today, I want to focus on a little NBA talk here, talking about the first 2 draft picks in the 2019 NBA draft, Zion Williamson and Ja Morant, who have had their share of off the court troubles. Let's just say. Let's start with
Andrew, don't keep the segment PG. You have to do it justice.
All right, as long as we know that we are not going to be
PG-13.
PG-13 for this one. I won't be getting into too many discrete details, I guess. But first of all, let's start with Ja Morant, because this one, on the surface, it's kind of funny, but at the same time, it kind of just makes me sad because Ja Morant, he really is a special talent, and to see him throw pretty much his career away over just being an idiot is what it comes down to. So for those who don't know, Ja Morant, late last season, a couple months ago, actually, like this is not too long ago, he got caught. I don't know what it was. He was like showing an Instagram video of him at like a strip club or something like that with like displaying a firearm, and he got suspended for like 7 or 8 games. 8 games by the NBA. There was a slap on the wrist where they said, "Hey, like Ja Morant, like you're one of the most popular players in the NBA. Like, don't be doing this stupid stuff. And if we catch you doing it again, there's going to be serious consequences." This dude, not even a month later, gets caught flashing a gun again on Instagram Live. Like, what are we doing here, Ja Morant? And here's the crazy thing. So now it's sounding like, we had this bombshell before the NBA Finals where basically Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, basically said that he wasn't going to announce a suspension for Ja Morant because he didn't want it to distract away from the finals. Like, can we imagine how bad the suspension is going to be if the NBA commissioner is basically saying that he doesn't want this storyline to be more popular than the NBA Finals, which is just about to go on? So that just tells you how bad the situation for Ja Morant. It honestly sucks because he's one of the most fun players to watch. And it's weird because his background is just like, you look at his background, comes from a, normal family, middle-class background, went to 4 years, I think 4 years of college, 3 years of college. And for him to be making these really stupid mistakes like this, I don't understand it. Then you get the Zion Williamson, who, the big issue on Zion Williamson is that he can't stay on the court, but he had something come over the last week or so, which we had to talk about here. So first of all, congratulations for Zion Williamson. I want to say it started off positive for him having his first kid. It was announced, but then so we're keeping it PG-13 here, I guess. But it turns out that Zion Williamson, that's not the only girl he's seeing these days, because porn star Mariah Mills comes out and she just goes
actress.
Oh,
adult film actress.
Adult film actress. See, this is why I wanted to keep it PG, because I would have just said that, but now that you influenced me. Adult film actress Mariah Mills comes out and just goes crazy on Zion Williamson on social media, showing all their text messages, basically showing that Zion Williamson kind of being a little promiscuous here with the ladies here, and just doing everything she can to just completely self-destruct this dude.
So it does not appear that he is into ethical non-monogamy. He's just into regular non-monogamy. Basically.
And the tweets, I'm just gonna say the tweets from this actress. Don't read them around your kids. That's all I'll leave with that.
Do not.
Did she delete them? Or are they still up?
They're still up.
They're still up. Okay.
Oh,
well, she actually posted a text
message.
message. Yeah, she posted a screenshot of a text message where Zion's
I don't think I saw those.
Yeah, Zion basically asked her to delete the photos, which at this point, Zion, they're already out there, dude. Like,
there's some weird on the internet.
The internet is forever.
Do you not know how the internet works on this? Like, come on here. Like, it's out there. So the reason why I bring these two up is just because, look, these two guys were supposed to be the really the face of the league, and they were shaping up to be that their first couple of years, but man, it's been dicey for these two guys this offseason. I really hope they get their act together because they're so fun to watch, but oh man, just they're in the news for the wrong reasons right now, and you don't want to see that. You hate to see it.
All righty.
Wow.
That's that was something. So before I move into mine, I do want to mention, because kind of talking about like getting around. I recently started rewatching the Spider-Man show from the 90s, the animated show, because I don't know, I'm bored. And I totally forgot in the first season, Peter is like dating MJ by episode 5, but then on episode 6, he's like, I keep striking out Felicia Hardy. And I'm like, Peter, you dog, man. Like he doesn't
you
care.
dirty dog.
And like he's huge in the show, and like he's bobbing. I'm like, dang, man, he's going around. I don't know if the show writers like messed up. Like they were supposed to do the Felicia Hardy stuff first and then just do MJ when they're supposed to release the episodes. But the way that it's structured is like he's kind of flirting with Felicia, starts dating MJ. We forget about it. He talks about Felicia some more. And then there's one episode where like Felicia and MJ are in the same thing. And he's like, uh-oh. And I was like, this is a TNG
hang on.
show.
I haven't watched the show in a while. Is he flirting with Felicia like as Peter or as Spider-Man?
As Peter. This is still Felicia Hardy. She's not Black Cat yet. Yeah.
Okay.
So
because I was gonna say like Peter
No,
could be
I would
dating
admit,
MJ,
yeah.
but Spider-Man could be dating Felicia Hardy.
yeah. Oh God, it's so good. Anyways, to go into my complete 180, I hate commercials. I despise them. I get why commercials exist, but I hate them. I hate waiting 3 minutes for a thing. I hate the bait like MLB when you hear the same commercials, oh my God, 20 times a game because they just recycle them. That being said, I do love when people make fake commercials, especially when they're like when it's a YouTube entertainer or something and they make fake commercials, fake sponsorships. That cracks me up so much. So I wrote some of them. So here we go. So my first commercial idea is for the Nick DiCola Glasses and Contact Supplier Incorporated. Friends,
God, no.
Are you tired of being blind? Well, here at Nick DiCola's Glasses and Contact Suppliers Incorporated, or for short, we can satisfy all of your blind as a bat needs. So why don't you come on down and try a pair? We may have a 1.5-star rating, but we're pretty sure that's just Jordan DuPont review bottoming us. Remember, if you hit a doctor in the parking lot, that doesn't mean you're arrested. It just means you've arrived. And if we can help that blind mofo see, we're pretty sure we can help you too. I also had a second commercial idea for energy drinks. Crack for teenagers. Hey kids, have you ever wanted to stay up until 4 a.m. while you think about that crush that rejected you? Do you want to drink a beverage that should probably be illegal to buy when you're under 18? Have you ever wanted your mother to barge into your room at 6:30 p.m. while you're sleeping in because she thought you died? That one actually happened to me in real life. Well, try an energy drink. We have all sorts of brands from Lone Star, Blue Dole, 6 Hour Apathy, Boss, and last but not least, I couldn't come up with a good one for that one. These drinks have so much crap in them, you can hear colors. Energy drinks. If you don't ask, we won't tell. I also have a couple sponsorship ideas that I just kind of rat off my brain. So to share a couple.
Not In and Out.
No, not In and Out. This would be fake sponsorship ideas, like such as this podcast is brought to you by the monster under my air mattress. I don't think he can breathe. And it's also brought to you by history. When it starts to repeat itself, you better start running. So, maybe one day when we get a better production, better editing, they hire somebody, maybe we'll inject some of these funny skit commercials for your viewing and listening pleasure too. So that's all I got.
Nick.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sidebar off of the commercials. Do you remember our video project in 8th grade when we did the Slam Choppa?
I
Or have you completely
I do
blocked that
remember
from
it.
your memory?
I do remember it. It's slowly coming back to me because I repressed it a bit, but
Oh,
that was
like a
pretty.
butterfly.
That was that was something else.
For the third time in this episode, shut up, Mrs. Willis. Sorry, we almost got you fired.
I really enjoy making like videos for like high school, middle school. Like a lot of them are fun. I made like in junior year something. I made a lot for junior, senior. I made like a lot of home videos and stuff. And
Honestly,
I
I
was really
think
proud
our
of them.
teachers just wanted to. I think our teachers just wanted to be like entertained. Like I don't.
Yeah.
think they
Oh
wanted to
yeah.
be-
Because they know
wanted
that
to be
they know that a
entertained.
bunch of unhinged 17-year-olds like they're just gonna do all sorts of crazy. And they were good. They're creative. It was fun. Like we wanted to do them.
Yeah.
Oh God! All right, Nick. I have in here.
Okay, I got it. Yep. Yeah. So basically, last week, Teige, if you remember, if you watched last week or listened to last week, Teige ranked all of the Spider-Man movies, and for whatever reason, this made me want to go back and rewatch some of them. So I decided to start with Spider-Man 3. Why? I don't know. It was on Netflix. It was there. I had the urge to watch it. Whatever.
It's also on Disney
Now-
Plus.
Oh, it's on Disney Plus. What's up?
Yeah, all the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans and that show around Disney Plus, a lot of the old animated shows are, and some
I
of the
didn't know
Marvel
that.
ones are. Far From Home it still isn't, or No Way Home, excuse me, it still isn't. I don't think actually Far From Home is either, but yeah.
Got it. Now, obviously, not many people hold Spider-Man 3 in high regard. Like Teige had it very low on his list. So I decided for my viewing, I was going to put a little bit of a twist on it. I watched it synced up with Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd.
You did not.
And guys, this is now my favorite Spider-Man movie. It is shocking how well this works, to the point where I'm convinced like Raimi had to have done this intentionally. Like all that studio meddling. No, he wanted to make a movie that went with Darkseid. And disclaimer number 1, I did not engage in any drug use watching this.
That was going to be my first question.
I know that was going to be your first question. That's why I got out ahead of it. I could do a full podcast on all the coincidences and perfectly timed transitions. But since we have to get out of here soon, I thought I'd just give you a few highlights. So during that first chase scene where Harry is chasing Peter, I think after he gets his grandmother, gets Aunt May's ring, Money is playing during that scene. And the lyric, "It's a Hit," is saying just before Harry gets hit with Peter's web, and then he falls and gets concussed. So like that was... And he actually falls like somewhat rhythmically to the song. So that was pretty cool. There's a scene after Peter and MJ fight at the restaurant a little bit later, and then MJ calls Harry and asks to come over. So Harry has her over, and they're cooking. And at this point, Any Color You Like is playing. That's the name of the song, right? Teige?
Yes.
All right, cool. All
Yeah.
right. So there's a point where MJ starts dancing, and it's like perfectly in sync with the music. Like it just fits perfectly, and they start dancing for a little bit. Scene goes on for a while. They kiss, and then MJ runs off because she feels guilty, obviously, because she's dating Peter. My God, there's so much like love triangle stuff in this movie. Like I didn't realize this. There's just so much of it. Anyway, she leaves as the song is winding down, and then as the song's winding down, like Harry is in like his dad's goblin lair, and like I shit you not, right as he gets his memory back, like brain damage kicks in and he starts hallucinating Willem Dafoe. Like it's freaking art. It's great. Now I know you're probably curious about like the emo Peter scene, and that one, you know, it didn't really go with anything. Honestly, it's better without the music. However, during that dance scene, when Peter takes Gwen to the jazz bar MJ's working at, Time is playing, and then at the end of the song, the lyric, "The song is over," coincides with the song in the movie ending as Peter is looking at MJ. You know, then you have the aftermath of that scene. Peter ends up accidentally hitting MJ in a scuffle. That is as the song fades, and that goes right into the church scene with "Great Gig in the Sky" as he's getting rid of the symbiote and Eddie Brock takes it. Like it is wild to watch. Yeah, those are the highlights for now. I'll cut it off at that. But
so Nick told me that he's doing this, and I was like, well, I guess I gotta do too. So I finished it last night as well.
God.
My personal favorite was I didn't sync it up perfectly, and so but it ended up being perfect because when Peter's explaining to MJ after she's in the play and he's explaining how acoustics work, literally as she says, "You're such a nerd," the clocks go off in time. And it was basically like, "Shut up, you're done." And I was like, oh my God, like Nick was right. This is perfect.
Oh,
so that was incredible.
I actually have a couple more. So brain damage. So when you're playing this album, you just play it on a loop. You end up going through the album 3 times. So 4 times brain damage comes on, and every time it like syncs up perfectly. Like we had like I talked about earlier when Harry gets his memory back. The first time through, the lyric "Every day the paper boy brings more" is saying as Peter shows up to the Daily Bugle for the first time with pictures of Spider-Man. So that's crazy. The lyric "I'll see you on the dark side of the moon" lines up with the Stan Lee cameo as MJ breaks up with Peter, and then in the climax as Harry gets stabbed and as Venom and Eddie Brock get blown up. Like it's like, do this now. Do this like right after this. Right after you listen to this, go home tonight, smoke a blunt, have a drink, whatever. Do this.
Nick, you're gonna have to send this to my my dad here because you know that he is obsessed with anything Pink Floyd. Dark Side of the Moon with any movie. Basically.
Oh, we don't condone drug use on this.
Disclaimer:
podcast.
the 4-Star
I would-
podcast
you
does
know.
not condone the use of
Yeah.
illicit drugs or underage alcohol consumption. Okay,
That is true. That is true.
got that out of the way.
I'm glad that you like actually did your homework, Nick, because like when you told me about it, I was like, I'll do it, but I definitely didn't pay him as much attention as you did. Like the Eddie Brock or the symbiote thing with Gary Sky and the time thing was my two big ones. So
No,
that's
with
funny.
no, I figured I'm like, let's see what it does. I had my notepad up and I was just like, you know what? Let's just like
John.
jot things down as I notice it because it might make for good content.
we missed a good one too because unfortunately Flint Marco is not on the run while On the Run is playing. That one would have been incredible if that synced up, but he is running while Time is playing. So it's kind of like, yeah, okay, that can work. That's respectable.
Actually, the lyric with Time 1 day closer to death comes on as it pans to a sick kid.
Oh,
Which
there
is
you
real-
go.
and
Yeah,
it does
yeah,
kinda
that one
fit
was
the
weird. Yeah,
and
that's true though.
and
Yeah.
And it does kind of fit thematically because, you know, he's been away on the run, like in jail for so long. So you could sort of make a connection with like Time there, that song. Anyway, yeah, that is all I have. Dark
So I
Side
gotta
of the
ask, did
Spider-Man
you, like-
3.
Pink Floyd,
Did
man.
you
I
Google
love
this,
Spider-Man.
or did you
It's
just
such a good
have the
combo.
idea and just ran with it?
Well, I had the idea. I somewhat stole it because, you know, people have been watching Dark Side with Wizard of Oz for decades.
Well, right.
There's a video of somebody watching he's on a podcast talking about how he watched it synced up with Paul Blart and Mall Cop 2. That one is nuts. That one is great. So I
showed me
Just
that,
seeing
Nick,
a
and I
huge
couldn't
spike in their
believe
like
how-
plays through Dark Side. They're like, what's going on?
so
Oh
I
my
figured, you
God.
know what, let's make this fun. Let's see if something lines up. And stuff definitely did.
Nick, you did mention because you mentioned too, like you said how you or Andrew's dad was talking about Pink Floyd to you or
Yeah.
something. Said also
Yeah.
partially inspired it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
That's so good. That's so funny.
Well, I was basically asking to see if you knew what you were getting yourself into before you did it, or if you're just like
No, I did
going
not.
for it.
I just
Okay.
went for it. I was like, let's see how it works. And apparently
right.
I picked the perfect movie for it. So
I respect it. All right. Anybody have any closing words of wisdom, or should I do my normal spiel here?
Don't drink and drive.
That's a good one. That is a good one.
That's my
Please don't
closing
drink
words of
and drive.
wisdom.
All right. Well, mine are not going to be nearly as heavy, but as always, thank you everybody for watching and listening. We are the 4-Star Podcast. I am Jordan DuPont, joined by, dang it, I did it. Rewind. I'm Jordan DuPont, joined by Nick DeCola, Teige Mullen, and Andrew Freeman. Again, you can find us on Twitter at 4StarPod CHI. Nick is at NDecola21. Teige is at TM Mullen 007. And Andrew is at AJ Freeman 25. You can also check out Andrew's other work for the Bear Report at 247sports.com and on the Picks for Polls podcast. That is
A little
a
bit of a
tongue twister.
Yeah.
I've never messed it up before. I'm kind of disappointed in myself. But also, you can check out our website, as Nick mentions it in the chat. It's like,
I just wanted to make sure you remembered it.
I'm getting there. It is just 4starpodchi.com,
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
Okay,
Same as the
know that, but-
Twitter handle.
And there you can check out it. Has anybody put up any other blog posts, or is it still just Teige's rant about war and what it's good for?
War the baseball stat, not like war.
I don't,
Yes.
I don't think anybody
But
has.
Yeah, no, it's just that at that point.
Okay, so we do have one blog post there to check out. You can read a little bit about us and why we're doing what we do here. But other than that, thanks again. We'll be back here next week ranting and raving. Take it easy.